So the whole ordeal with this, it stems from a particular tweet that came out today, Vesper. I know you were busy when I contacted you and I said I need you to come on the show. You were doing other things, so you don't have time. You didn't have time to prepare for this, but I wanted to get into this. Now, let's get into the tweet first and foremost, because I think we'll take this and then we'll step back, we'll walk it back, and then we'll bring it back to where we're at here. Because if it wasn't for you and your research, actually, I never would have saw this. I never would have caught this. And no, I owe you a debt of gratitude for this. And I think a lot of the people in the audience today that are catching this, that maybe a lot of people don't know what's even happening here, including the people that are talking in these tweets. So let's get into this. So this is Melissa Lantsman. She is the number 2 of the Conservative Party. She is Pierre Poilievre's deputy. And she put out a tweet today saying, "Fixed it." And this is and so this is in response to Katie Telford's tweet, but showing an image of a tweet from Chrystia Freeland, who's been named Darth Freeland in our chat tonight. It's very fitting. So anyway, moving on from that. So she crosses out Melissa, which was and put in Katie's name. "I'm very disappointed to see you peddling blatant misinformation." Now, this is in response to, and I said, look at this, Canadian Parliament catfight on Twitter today. You got Katie Telford. Katie Telford tweets out, "Canada has 0 pro-choice Conservative MPs, Watchdog says." So that's to say that nobody is pro-choice, everybody is pro-life that is on the Conservative camp. That's the statement she's making. This is based on a Guardian Watchdog thing, and Chrystia Freeland, and Melissa Lantsman is saying this is disinformation that you're peddling, right? This is ultimately what's being said.
Yeah, it's actually it's unbelievably disingenuous. That's the most incredible thing about this. It's completely disingenuous.
Well, it wouldn't get anywhere if it wasn't for a context added by a reader that I don't think was trying to give context to what they were trying to give context to. Does this make sense to you?
Yes.
So
I understand.
So the reader adds context and says Bill C-311, so C-311, is a 78-word bill that does not contain the word abortion. So I'm guessing by the wordage of the person here, they're coming to the defense of the Conservatives here and saying that it doesn't even contain the word abortion, blah blah blah. You're full of yourself. It's not a bill against abortion, right?
Correct.
But then it says the bill is to protect a pregnant woman with the aggravating circumstances for the purpose of sentencing.
And that's what I think you want to unpack. And
that's explain. What I want to unpack here. And this is,
I understand.
And this is where a lot of the research you brought to my attention came into play, because this is where it gets deep. Now, earlier this year, I did a response to Maxime Bernier. Maxime Bernier was running for the position in Portage-Lisgar, which was the region where Candice Bergen was the MP for. So she was the representative there, and she was retiring, and the seat was opening up, and Maxime Bernier saw it as an opportunity to go run against the Conservative. I've always said, Maxime, what are you doing? PPC is a great way to get disaffected liberals, get NDPers that are disappointed with the liberals and the NDP that would never ever vote Conservative. You get those people. Go and get those people, and don't bother with the Conservative areas, because you would be vote splitting, right? And I even interviewed him and said, "Are you vote splitting? Is that what you're doing?" He says, "No, I am not vote splitting. I am doing the thing to bring the country together." And every time he runs against Conservatives in Conservative ridings. So I thought that was really interesting. And in his approach to doing this campaign, he switched his position and he says he's now going to try to ban late-term abortions if elected in June. Now, he wasn't elected, but he changed his position. But Andrew Lawton had him on, and when Andrew Lawton had him on, Andrew Lawton pressed him, and he says, "Does this mean that you're pro-life now?" And he says, "I'm not going to answer the question to that. I'm not going to answer the question to that."
It's probably too extreme, one side or the other. He wants to kind of find.
So he
old school way.
Exactly, and he wanted to find the area where he could, you know, he's saying that he's against the late term abortions, which by I think the metrics were that I think there was like 5 last year. Late-term abortions, and all of them that happened would have fallen under the criteria for exemptions under his proposal anyway, and this was the case. Now, what I brought to people's attention was a piece of legislation, a piece of law that is in place, which is Section 233 of the Criminal Code. Now, this is what actually makes abortion legal in Canada, and this is what's happened over time. And this is what you brought to my attention. And when you brought this to my attention, I was under the suspicion that Maxime Bernier was pandering.
Right.
He was pandering to a base that that has a pro-life, element to it. And he was like,
he might have been. You know, I think the issue at the end of the day is, what is the law say? Before anyone has an opinion, let's at least find out what the actual law says and where Canada stands on this topic. It's unfortunate not many people, and I didn't know, I'll be honest with you, Clyde, when I showed this, we had a long conversation, you and I, 6 months ago?
Yes.
And we were both like blown away with how much there's actual law and precedents and explanations for all this. And a lot of people I think they bank on the fact that no one knows, right? And so what they're doing is galvanizing parties to different sides. But if you just knew what was in the law, you wouldn't fall from either side. You would know exactly what the law says.
So in the United States, and a lot of people look to the United States as like an example of how things work. And in the United States, they had Roe versus Wade, which was a Supreme Court decision back in the 1970s. And in that Supreme Court decision, it made for an allowance for people to have abortions. And because of that, it was across the board, no longer in the hands of the states. It was legal in the United States proper because of that decision.
Right.
There was never, ever a law on the books where they wrote legislation to say, you know, from this day forth, abortion shall be legal, anything like that.
Right.
And put on their powder.
With the powder wigs, right?
So that wasn't what happened. It was a Supreme Court decision that teased them into that. And then in recent times, that decision was stricken down because of a court case that came up, and that's how that relevance came to be. And now it's gone back to the states for the states to make their decisions on this. Now in Canada, it's actually a law. It's in our law.
And it's not just in our law; it's the way it's phrased. Now, if you don't mind me, just indulge me for a second, just to kind of give some backstory.
This is why I brought you on, because I wanted to give the political side of things, and you did good. Yeah, you did good. This is now just the technicalities of what I think you and I discovered when we were going through this. Yes.
And I had pointed out that where did abortion start? How did abortion start? And where did it go? And I think I had shared a video with you. Can we share that video to kind of set the stage?
Do you have it available?
It's in your Discord.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I dropped it for you. Now, the irony, just before you do it, the irony behind all this is that just to show you that the law was already there, and Daddy Trudeau was the one that started making the amendments that everybody is railing against today. Like if you would just look, he's going to be speaking in French, but there's English subtitles. I think it's important that we see this before we get into the technicalities, if that's okay with you.
That's absolutely fine with me. Yeah, for sure. So I'll pull this up.
Let's play it.
I don't know if you'll be able to hear the audio, but the audience will for sure. So
it's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
Tout ce que nous faisons, c'est de clarifier la loi qui existe actuellement. et qui se pratique dans les hôpitaux, y compris les hôpitaux catholiques. Nous disons que l'avortement dans certaines conditions pour sauver la santé ou la vie de la mère gravement mise en danger sera permise sous un comité de contrôle. La seule différence à notre amendement, c'est que nous créons un comité de contrôle qui n'existait pas avant. Nous améliorons la loi, nous ne rendons pas l'avortement plus facile.
So it's unbelievably important.
Unpack that.
Yes. So let me explain right away. If you just listen to the first sentence of that video, and I hope you use this video on Twitter or any of your socials to people just understand, he said there was an existing law. This law, I mean, the one we traced back was out of a Manitoba law journal that dates it back to, from what I remember, let me just pull it up. I think I have it here in my comments that I had posted when we had that conversation. So, let me see the year. Okay, do you mind if I just read it out just so that everyone understands? And I could always and I could give you the PDF to share with the rest of the
send the PDF over. I'll put it on the screen and you read it out.
Perfect. Let me just send it to you. Give me a sec. Here you go.
I've got the technology.
We got the tech.
We got the technology. We got this. We can make this happen.
All right. So here I dropped the link. It's a Manitoba law journal. And what you want to do is you want to go to section 2 in the history of jurisprudence of section 233. Now, let's leave that there. I'm going to read something for most people they need to know. Before you get to 233,
can you tell me what
you
page
need to read
you need to be on?
Yeah, I'll tell you right now. Give me a second. It is, from what I'm seeing, page 3. Oh. Okay, just stay at page 3. Okay. Now, you had addressed 233. 233 is the infanticide clause, and I could read it out. But before we do that, I think it's important, and I'll send you the link to this one as well, just so you could put 223. I mean, if you want to just remember these, it's probably important to see how Canada defines like what a child is, right? Before we get into infanticide.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And when a human is a human, when that becomes. So, and this, right. And this is a really interesting thing because this is discussed over and over and over ad nauseum in the United States, but we don't have these discussions because it's been decided in law. So in the United States, right, you'll hear Ben Shapiro going to college campuses and discussing when a human becomes a human. People say at conception and people say at birth, and then there's all kinds of times in between that people are trying to draw consensus on, but there's no consensus yet in the States. We have in law a time, a specific moment when that becomes the case.
Right, and there's history, right? A lot of people have used this politically. So I just dropped the screen grab for you. I don't know why it's not letting me give you the link. I can give you the link.
Yeah, I've got the screen grab.
I'll read to you 223. When a child becomes a human, most people need to know that this is in the law, okay? Mm-hmm. A child becomes a human being when the meaning of this act, within the meaning of this act, when it has completely proceeded in a living state from the body of its mother, whether or not it has breathed, that's when Canada, when a child is out, it's declared a human being. Once it's out and it breathes, it has an independent circulation or the navel string is severed. And then you can see there's other precedents, like what is killing a child? A person commits homicide when he causes injury to a child before or during its birth, as a result of which the child dies after. Look at how this is worded.
Yeah.
If you injure the child, but the child's not out yet, and it's not breathing, it's not considered a child. It must breathe first outside the womb. Then if the child is alive and then dies, then that person is guilty of killing a child.
Or negligence, okay, or culpable of whatever.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
It's unbelievably technical. Now, once you understand this, now you go to 233, and that's the infanticide. But the way that it's phrased, you need the history behind it to understand why they phrased it that way. And that's what we're going to cover.
Right.
So 233 says, and I don't know if you have the link for the 233. I could give you the screen grab also for that one. And then we'll get into the Manitoba law.
Well, I have 233 up on here. I pulled it up earlier. This is like right from the criminal code. Right from the Justice Law website. So section 233, a child becomes a human being Oh, sorry, this is 223 that I have.
Right. 233 is
so
what you need.
233.
Not there.
So
yes.
I have an explanation of 233 here.
Go ahead. Well, I'll give you a better explanation. I just want you to see exactly how it's written. Here, I'll give you the screen grab for that one too.
Sure.
Here's 233.
Okay, there we go. 233.
A female person commits infanticide, and we had to read this, you and I, like 4 times.
I know,
kind of
it's
what
such a
he said.
juggle.
A female person commits infanticide when by a willful act or omission she causes the death of her newly born child. If at the time of the act or omission she's not fully recovered from the effects of giving birth to the child, and by reason thereof, of the effect of lactation consequent on the birth of the child, her mind is then disturbed. It is so vague. Like, I get the first part, and what were you meaning by the second part?
Well, this is where it's convoluted, right? This is where it's like, okay, right. Well, what did you mean by this, and what is this clause in the sentence? This is a run-on sentence, if I've ever seen one, right?
So what I'd like you to do is let's go to that medical journal, and it gives some history for how long this has been in the law and what caused it to be put that way into the law from the Manitoba Law Journal.
You talking about that PDF that we had?
Right. Let's open that up real quick. Okay. So just so we're starting, and we're on page 3, and you should see section A, provision, text, and history.
That's right here. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Try to zoom this
we don't need
so
to read.
Follow along.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need that, because we just read it. A female person. That's the law right there. Now let's read the explanations there. Parliament added S-233 to the criminal code in 1948. This isn't 1990. This isn't 1980. No. This is 1948. Again, remember what the video you just saw with
we already have laws on the books that we
right. Yeah. There you go. Traditionally, and please, to the entire audience, I would respectfully request understanding and compassion to what women used to go through years ago in this country. It was so not fair to them and everything that they had to go through because the dynamics were wrong, completely wrong. I mean, it was a complete patriarchy and a lot of abuse happened. And I just want to make sure that we understand as we're reading this, that I'm completely for the reasoning that we're about to read. And I'm sure you are too, because you and I were shocked when we read this. Like,
I had no idea.
We just lacked the history. Right. So Parliament added S-233 to the criminal code in 1948. Traditionally, many mothers who killed their newly born children were poor, unable to raise them. They were often raped or seduced by their employers or their employers' relatives and fired once the pregnancy became known. Juries were reluctant to convict these mothers of murder, as that meant an automatic death sentence. You might want to just scroll down because that's on page 4.
Right.
Okay. Thus, juries would nullify and acquit these women even if they were clearly guilty. Sympathy was not the only reason for acquittals, however. Many infanticides were actually maternal neonaticides, the killing of a newly born child immediately following or within a few months of its birth by its biological mother. To convict those mothers, now here's the law, okay? We're going to understand why 233
first off,
was framed this way.
The sympathy was not only for the reason, however, many infanticides were actually maternal
neonaticides.
Neonaticides, okay. The killing of a newborn child immediately following or within a few months. This is something I didn't even know existed.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, look, here's the thing. You have a government, just to kind of parlay on this on the outside, you had a government that is in a very difficult position. They have a law that you can't do this. But on the other hand, there's a compassionate element to this because there was abuse occurring to these women. So how's the law going to convict? How's the government going to convict on, let's say, their beliefs at that time? But at the same time, make sure that these people get their, let's call it judgment. It looks heartless. And that's what we're going to read right now. This is now where you're going to start seeing the debacle. To convict these mothers, the Crown had to prove that the infant had been born alive. You see that whole breathing thing? It was born alive.
That's where 223 comes in.
Dude, 1948. This isn't 1948. This is not now. This is not Maxime. This is not liberals today. This isn't even the 70s. This isn't the 60s. This isn't any of that. Before the 50s.
Yeah.
Okay. So a child was deemed born alive when it had taken its first breath. This was hard to prove and led to many proper acquittals and jury nullifications. Now you could explain jury nullifications to people better than I did. You explained it to me better.
Okay, so the idea behind jury nullification, the whole concept behind it. Now, I really didn't know that we had such a strong case for jury nullification in Canada until we started unearthing all of this stuff. I know that traditionally in the United States that this is something that the advocates for or against laws would use as a way to try to change the laws in the country. If the judicial branch or if your legislature wouldn't try to change the law, they would try to do it through jury nullification. What jury nullification is when a law is unjust, they will nullify the charges. So even though the person would be guilty under the eyes of the law, they would acquit anyway. Or, this kind of situation. And what it would lead to is like new precedent showing that this law is unjust and this other court case got let off on this. So they would say, okay, well, here we can change the law based on the rulings in a court, because we do have a precedent-based system. Now, this is used a lot in the States. They'll have activists coming out in front of a court case where they know what's going on and they'll see the jurors coming in. You're not allowed to tamper with a juror, but they were allowed to hand out pamphlets that were screened by the judicial branch, and you could pass out pamphlets on what jury nullification is about. And what that would do is it would give you information on the fact that, yes, even though by the letter of the law it's written that this person may be guilty, you could still acquit. You could acquit them. And that was the main purpose of it.
Just go back to the PDF. We're right there. We're at that. What you just said, we're right there right now. So in 1948, Parliament tried, just that second paragraph right there. You see 1948? Tried to remedy this via enacting S-233, which allowed juries, now I won't pay attention, convict these mothers of a lesser offense of infanticide. Parliament hoped that the lenient maximum penalty of 3 years, later raised to 5 years, imprisonment would prevent jury nullification. This is the whole reason. So what's the reason in the layman terms? We were going to basically destroy these women's lives because it was at that time, this is how it was viewed, it was murder. But nobody's going to convict these women who have been abused or used or harmed in any way for the situation they were put in, completely without any of their control. And they would lose, the Crown would lose almost every case. So they said, okay, we got to find a way where we can still convict, but not lose the case.
Yeah, because the sympathy was with the people. We're not going to put this woman away for life. That can't.
It's not her,
and so
it's not her fault.
But people didn't find that the punishment fit the crime, so they would acquit with jury nullification. This is when people knew what the system was, and I blame our education system that we didn't even know this going into it, because we should know this stuff. But this is the fact of the matter. We're all learning all over again.
Clyde, isn't this exactly what Pierre Trudeau, you just saw him in the video say? We're not changing the existing law. We're adding oversight. Well, what's the oversight for?
Well, it's interesting what he added to the law. And this is something that I think is a very crucial thing, what he added, because what he added helps us all, despite what he thought he was doing. And can you get into that?
Well, I think it bears to mind that he's not saying that abortion shouldn't be allowed. In fact, there's many videos where Pierre Trudeau was coming out saying, we're not against the idea of pro-choice or pro-life. We're not doing any of that. What we're saying is there has to be mechanisms in place where things are not abused. Now, it's really funny. When you go back to that time when the patriarchal dominance was very abusive, it made complete sense to create the laws the way that they were now. What Pierre Trudeau wanted to do was, we're not just going to let any person do whatever they want. And that brings us to like a guy called Harry Morgentaler. We talked about Henry Morgentaler also, right? When this is the person that was helping women at that time get the abortions. After it wasn't legal in Canada. It wasn't legal in many provinces. They weren't just going to let anybody do this. It was very frowned upon. And this man, in many ways was helping a lot of these women that would come to him that were put into a very bad place in their lives. And, you know, it's so funny. We had talked about this, you and I. There was no oversight back then. And he wanted to bring this oversight and make it so that it's regulated in a way where it wasn't abused, right? So I think one of the things that I think we should continue to just explain in that this thing that you're looking at right now, if you can go down to page 5, just to add a little bit more, the Crown, on page 5, it says the Crown, and I'm just saying, to establish the actus reus of infanticide, the Crown must prove that a woman caused the death of her child through a willful act or omission. The woman must also have a disturbed mind. Look at all these things the government has to prove. How are they going to prove all of this? There's 1,000,001 things that they're going to have to prove, and they're going to lose on almost every count because you can't prove these things. They were settling for a middle ground. So the fact that Chrystia Darth Vader Freeland is acting like the way she's acting, like as if, oh yeah, no one here is, no, listen, you can't talk this way. Both sides.
That gets complicated because Chrystia Freeland wasn't actually even talking about that in her tweet. She was talking about something else. Her image of her tweet was reused as fodder for another thing. I just want to jump in and say, Dixon Ciderbush, thank you for re-upping your membership for 5 months now. Oh, you gifted 5 memberships to the channel. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. I love the handle, by the way. That one's gonna.
So I suppose what I'm trying to say is, because I've seen this argument from the left and from the like on the fact that the people that are on the right and all these people, they don't believe in pro-choice, and this is completely disingenuous. This has been in our laws for over 70 years.
Well, what did Trudeau?
No one has argued.
What did Trudeau do though? And this is I think what I was getting to, that he may have helped us in other causes inadvertently by doing this.
Yeah, Pierre Trudeau did not make it illegal to have abortions. What he did was he set up an oversight committees over how these are administered, so that, because people don't realize that if you don't have proper medical facilities, proper administration for people that are going through abortion or so on and so forth, it could get really bad and really ugly for people's lives. He helped set up a streamlining of how to do this. Now, unless you're talking about in another way, I saw it purely as a medical decision that he wanted to make sure these women were protected, right, at that time.
What I was referring to was the fact that he put into place, I don't know if it was legislation or what, to give more weight to jury nullification. So that when a when a jury,
again, listen, don't blame me. This was really quick.
I know it was a lot to prepare. It was a lot to prepare in a short time. But
right, and I have it for you. I could get it for you.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, while you're looking for that, I want to thank Newbie431 for gifting 20 memberships to the channel. That's 20 with a big 2-0. Thank you so much, Noob431. Everybody who just got a new membership, get in the chat and thank him so much for that. Really appreciate that. Lots of support coming this way. And he also said Dixon sucks because Dixon gave 5. Thank you, Dixon, as well.
I'm going to copy the link to the highlight so that you could go straight there and show it on your screen. This is what you were talking about. When you click this link in Discord, it should open up what you were talking about.
Yes.
Right there. So you could read it. Go ahead. You read it.
It's in 1975. Under Liberal Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, the Canadian Parliament changed the law so that an appeals court could not overturn a jury acquittal. A jury acquittal being the idea of jury nullification. So they could not, the Crown couldn't go to an appeals court after jury nullification. I don't know why I'm spitting over those words. After jury nullification took place, they would often go to an appeals court and try to overrule the ruling and then get the conviction that they were after. What Trudeau did was he actually put a piece of legislation through to make it so if you got your jury nullification, SOL Crown. It's over.
That's it.
It's over.
It's over.
So this is actually something.
And it's crazy how no one knows this. How can most people not know this?
And this is something we ought to know, especially people who are railing against and fighting against the current Trudeau. In cases where they're trying to, have a a kangaroo court type situation. If you're being tried with criminal charges, I don't know what the cases are where you can choose whether you get to seen before a judge or before a jury. But this is a chance where we could have people seen before juries and have the chance of the government's laws being stricken because of jury nullification. And this is a great process. Democratic means, right, by the way, it's democratic. It's under I don't know what the institution, it's under the judicial system for changing laws, but it is the people speaking at this point.
Another piece of irony in this is if you go down to that, you see where it says, if you go down a little bit down that page, and this is something just people need to know, this has not been conservatives that are the only problem in this. You see where it says Morgan Taylor right there was not released? Read that. Morgan Taylor was not released on parole. That's the part. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Morgan Taylor was not released on parole after serving 1/3 of his sentence, 6 months in total. He served 10 months, suffering a heart attack while in solitary confinement. After
Remember,
which he
this
was
is the guy that was
hospital.
helping. Yeah, this is the guy that was helping the woman with the abortions. Now look at who comes up right now.
After which he was released to hospital. It was reported that Liberal Justice Minister for Quebec, Jerome Croquet, was deeply involved.
Choquette.
He's potato fried. Anyway, deeply involved with the interest of prosecuting Morgan Taylor until he was removed from the portfolio.
Who was the one prosecuting the guy that was helping women with the abortions? A Liberal Justice Minister for Quebec.
Oh, a Liberal
This is
Justice
the guy.
Minister.
He was. So this is not a right thing. This has been all through history from 1950 till now. Both sides were doing this, and now it's being used for political purpose.
So last time a piece of legislation that went through the parliament to outlaw abortion went through, it was actually a Liberal MP that proposed it. I think it was in like 2008 or something like that. It wasn't that long ago.
Right. But see, why does no one talk about this? I'm not even saying the conservatives have it all together.
No,
Believe me,
I don't think
I
they
know
do.
They made a lot of mistakes.
I don't think they do.
You know,
and I think
saying,
in this case they totally don't have it together because they don't even know the law. And here we are pointing it out in this live stream. And here we are. We're watching them bicker on Twitter, and they don't even know what they're talking about. It's great. I just want to interrupt for 1 second. Vander Key and Locke, thank you for first joining as a member for the channel and also giving away 20 memberships. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. The support is always welcome.
I think ultimately what you and I discovered 6 months ago when we had this long conversation is, oh my goodness, both sides of the aisle were so interwoven in this. They would switch places on the same topic so many times that you end up realizing, wait a minute, this had nothing to do with what they believed in. This had to do with about getting elected. And you start understanding that their hardcore beliefs, liberals back then, they might as well have been conservatives today, the way that they're being blamed. Mm-hmm. And a lot of conservatives were actually fighting in a very liberal way for women's rights. And it's like, why is no one talking about this? Why is it so polar now? Like as if it's always been this way.
No, and it's split. It's split even amongst the aisles. It's not down the aisle. You know what I mean? It's split everywhere. Like I said, a Liberal MP in I think it was 2008. It was recent. It wasn't that long ago. It didn't make it anywhere. It was stricken down right away. But somebody proposed banning abortion in Canada. Now, you'd have to go through the judiciary and you'd have to go through and actually pass laws that would change these laws because they're old laws, like we're pointing out here today. Newbie 431, thank you again for gifting another 5 memberships to the channel. Wow, there's a lot of members jumping in tonight. There's a lot of new members this evening. So everybody, thank Vander Key, Dixon, and Newbie 431 for your memberships as you're hanging out in the chat tonight. Now, this is an interesting thing because, well, do we just get back to the original tweet? Because this is kind of where we're at.
Let's
this
go.
Point.
Let's go. Because look, just to summarize, I just want to do this quick. Do you mind, Clyde, if I just
No, I don't mind at all. Absolutely.
Okay. So, you have, what is a human? It's only when it exits a woman and it's breathing. It's not manslaughter until the baby exits the womb and it's breathing.
Until it takes its first breath. It is not even considered a human in the eyes of the law.
Precisely. Infanticide is, okay, now what happens if the woman does something? We know now contextually, back then, women were severely abused by a system of patriarchy and corruption, and just overall, women had it really bad back then. And honestly, we've come a long way. We still have a long way to go, but women back then had no defense the way things were structured. And there was no one that was going to convict these poor women that were being abused, used, raped, and all these things. Infanticide at that time, the government's like, we're never going to win a case against any woman that does this. So we got to figure a mitigating way to still have some law enacted. And we have to prove that a woman was not feeling well. Maybe she went through a postpartum depression or whatever it was that they needed to go through in order to get them somehow prosecuted, but not lose the case under jury nullification.
But it was common enough an occurrence that this was it was a thing that these cases came up over and over and over again in the courts.
The Crown lost every case. They would lose almost every single case.
That's right.
And rightfully so, because the woman had no chance. She really had no chance.
Well, because under the eyes of the law, previous to this legislation going through and this law going through, previous to that, you would be charged with killing an adult. It would be the same as another adult killing another adult. That was the crime. That was the punishment, right?
Right. And now what happened is then you get guys like Pierre Trudeau come in. Again, we're just resuming real quickly. Then Pierre Trudeau comes in and he says, okay, everyone was attacking him because remember he said Catholic hospitals, Catholic, medical facilities. Mm-hmm. We're not stopping, we're not saying that you can't get abortions. What we're doing is, because he was under pressure at that time, is that we need to set up a system that would allow us to basically secure that if there is an abortion, that it's done in a supervised way from the government, that it wasn't just going to be any guy that was going to do this. But then we get to that jury nullification statement that you made.
That's right.
Where he then implements this law. And I don't know if you want to start from there, and then we can go to the tweet that you wanted to see.
Okay, so the jury nullification came into play because women, despite them trying to pull it back and only convict them for 5 years, and that was what the Crown tried to do with this new law, they still were acquitting these women through jury nullification. Now Trudeau came in and he had that speech that you showed earlier where he said, we're not going to make any new existing laws. This isn't what we're doing here. We're going to work within the framework of the law. And what he did instead was he passed legislation that made it so if a person for whatever reason is acquitted through jury nullification, that's it. It's final, and they can't appeal.
There's no arguing.
They can't appeal.
There's no more argument. Not Maxime, not Poilievre, not nobody is going to appeal this anymore.
Right.
It's in the law. It's built in.
Right. So on the political side of things, people have liked to pander. And they like to keep bringing up the abortion debate because it's a hot topic in the United States because of how U.S. laws work and how the politics work there. So it becomes a contested thing. Their system of governance is completely different. It's not completely different, but their laws on this.
No, it's based on laws. Listen, their law system is completely different than ours, right?
Well, they have a different set of laws. They have a different set of laws. And there is no law in the United States on abortion at the federal level like there is in Canada. And that's the reality of it. And so they kick it off to the states in the United States. At the federal level, they kick it off to the states up until Roe versus Wade. And then it was a federal law through that case. And then when it was stricken out, it went out. Now, this has become a popular issue for the liberals since the 1990s to drum up both abortion and then also gay marriage. These are two things that they like to drum up as distraction issues or whatever. So you're not talking about the real concerns that Canadians have. I mean, many of the concerns that Canadians have today are, economy, housing, these kind of things. And these are the things that, of course, people want to hear about. But when they bring up stories like this, like abortion, the thing that happens is people have very strong emotional ties to these topics. And so they'll side with a politician that has the views that they have.
what I'd like to say, and listen, I respect if Maxime has a position, for example, and I'm not coming at Maxime, I'm not coming at Pierre, I'm not coming at anyone. What I think is important for all Canadians is it's time for us to do our due diligence to find out what it is that we actually have written in our laws. It's not hard to find. We have Google everywhere. I encourage everybody, please go and read on what's the basis of these things. In order for Maxime to say we're going to go pro-life and change legislation, we're talking about you're going to undo 70 years of law that conservatives and liberals and other people couldn't undo. That's disingenuous. It's not just 1, 2, 3 and you snap it out. There's a process, a long process for you to do this. That's how secure abortion is in Canada, in our law, that it's been there for 70 years.
And
you're going to just undo it?
And this is what brings us to this tweet. So I called out Maxime Bernier because I thought what he was saying was disingenuous. He wasn't addressing the real issue. Now, in this tweet, we're actually, in a roundabout way, and they don't even realize it, addressing the real issue.
Yeah.
They're actually addressing it because, and here we go, let's recap this one. The original tweet was Katie Telford saying that Canada has 0 pro-choice conservative MPs, and this watchdog says this, right? So 0 pro-choice conservative MPs. So they're saying that no MPs on the conservative side support the right to abortion. They all think that it should be illegal. That's what's being said here. The second in command on the conservative side, Melissa Lantsman, the deputy to Pierre Poilievre, put out a tweet saying fixed it, and it's a screenshot of Chrystia Freeland saying, Katie, I'm disappointed to see you peddling blatant misinformation. Now, the misinformation, let's get into this. Let's unpack this. A reader then said, readers added context, Bill C-311 is a 78-word bill that does not contain the word abortion. The bill is to protect a pregnant woman with aggravating circumstances for the purpose of sentencing. So this will change the sentencing in, what is it? Of the criminal code 233.
For infanticide.
The law that legislates infanticide. So this is actually changing.
Right.
What makes abortion illegal?
It's funny. I've showed you a few articles also that in Canada, some men have crashed into women with their cars. And because the babies were in the womb, they didn't deem it manslaughter. If you're going to change these laws, it is not a 1, 2, 3, and people should not be playing with these political statements, in my opinion, because what they're banking on is people's ignorance, or like you said, their emotional attachments to one side or the other. I want Canadians everywhere. Listen, whatever side you pick, we are all supposed to stand up for the law that is already there. And if you don't know what's already there, then people can sway you to the left and to the right, thinking that they're going to do something when they're not going to do anything. Because it's like you said, it's right down the aisle. This isn't this side versus this side. For crying out loud, the guy that was doing this abortions and encouraging women to do at that time infanticide was arrested by a liberal justice minister. So let's cut this bipartisan thing. This is Canadians that were all in on this, and it was Canadians that were nullifying those juries. They wouldn't convict these women who were being, people forget that there's Canadians here. It's not parties, we're Canadians. And us Canadians, we all work together, even from 70 years ago, and we saw what was right and wrong. And I'm sorry, but I feel like people are just banking on people's fears and using these things and making people go to both sides. Just read the laws and read the history. You'll find out that it wasn't like the way it's described today. I'm sad that they're doing that, but if you're going to change the law, it's not going to be a one prime minister alone. It's going to take a lot. It's going to take a big consensus in Canada.
So the bill here states first session, 44th Parliament. Now, the way I know how these bills have been going through, just an experience of talking about these things and watching them get proposed and then debated and then signed over, this isn't going to be the whole bill. If you looked at Bill C-21, you'll know this, right? C-21 was 40 something pages, and then it turned into 400 something pages or 600 pages or something like that. So this is the first session for this bill, and this is the first reading. Now the bill is called an act to amend the criminal code, violence against pregnant women. This enactment amends the criminal code to specify that knowingly assaulting a pregnant woman and that causing physical emotional harm to a pregnant woman are to be considered aggravating circumstances for sentencing processes. Now, where does that get? Where does that come into?
Yeah, hold on. That's okay. Just stay there.
Okay,
just stay there. This is the problem. They're trying to say that life is in the womb, but the law, the way that it was framed, is no. It has to exit the womb breathing. That's when it's considered that those types of circumstances. And now, how are we going to undo this? This is what I suppose you're going to continue reading on. How are they planning on making it so that the life that's in the womb is considered a human? That's really what they're up against at this point. How are they going to change that? I'm asking you. I don't know.
Well, if we know how legislation goes through, I mean, here's one, for example. Here's a piece of legislation called Bill C-18, right? Now, this one went through, and what is the bill called? An act respecting online communication platforms that make news content available to persons in Canada. Now, is that what's in the bill? Is that what was in the bill? What was in the bill was actually the federal government trying to decide who is and who is not an actual news organization or a reputable news organization, and then also extort I call it the shakedown.
Yeah,
the shakedown. It was a shakedown bill. It totally was. And it was to say that if social media companies have their links on their in their feed, they owe them reparations for revenues made by advertising. They clearly don't know how the industry works.
No.
They don't know how it works, but they were doing this shakedown nonetheless. But it has nothing to do with the title of the bill. So we would have to go through this other bill. But so what prompted me on this whole thing was, and I, we could at the end of the day be like, inaccurate on what's in the bill. Is it going to amend 233? Is it going to amend 223? I don't know.
Look, but that's it. Stay right there. You just nailed it. Where there's no mistake here. It's plain. For you to have that law, C-33, sorry, what was it again? Bill 311?
311.
You first have to remove 223 that says that a child is in the womb, not out of the womb. So forget 233 infanticide. You have to redefine.
Yes. So in order to say that a pregnant woman, and you want to change the sentencing for pregnant woman versus not pregnant woman, well, first you would either have to make a law saying a pregnant woman is like a new entity, like
yes,
like
inside of her is a life within a life.
No. You would have to say that, because if you're ignoring the life and not changing criminal code 233 or 223, you'd have to say that up until the point of birth to the point of becoming pregnant, a woman is a human being, and then add a new pregnant human being as an entity in law, and then during that time there would be a pregnant human being until the time that the pregnancy is over, and then they become a human again, and then you get what I'm saying? You'd have to create this other legal entity in order to make that work.
Another hurdle is what you're saying.
It's another hurdle. So or they're trying to change those laws. They're trying to change the laws that exist on the books already.
Because this can't work. Because this C-311, I'm saying this to anyone that's conservative, it's not going to work if you don't undo 223 or do as Clyde said and create an entirely different subsection of defining a
human being that is pregnant.
So you're completely right. And I hope today what people take from this talk is that it's not very hard to find the information in our criminal codes. It's just, you got to type criminal code and type the word you want in Google, and you'll see all the sections that are written there. And you find out, if you want some history, that people make a bunch of statements like, we want to amend this. Well, for you to amend this, you have to amend like a lot of stuff. It's not like one thing and that's it. You got to amend this because this is attached to this law. and this law's got to get amended because it's actually going back to this law. So it's like it seems very linear, right? That people make these statements. But if you're going to say that we're going to now make it illegal if you hurt a woman that's pregnant, I personally agree. If somebody ever harms a woman that's pregnant and the child in her dies, I think there should be consequences.
I agree with
that. But we have to also
be
right. But we need to know what the law says so that we could fight adequately, not just flailing our arms with our emotions. That's what I think.
Well, I absolutely agree with that. Sorry, I had a technical difficulty here. All my windows went away. I don't know why Windows does that occasionally. But yeah, that happened to me. So I'm just trying to pull all my windows back up.
Yeah, go ahead. No, and I just, again, I think it's just so unbelievably disingenuous, and I keep using that word because I'm tired of being divided from people that are liberals and liberals divided against people that are conservatives. If you knew the history, you would find out that it's actually so much helpful for us to know what was written, regardless of what you believe, to not be played anymore. I want laws, but you have to know what the laws are now before you even suggest these laws so you can create a political campaign.
Right.
You understand? That's really what's gotten to me. And I think why our conversations have always been fruitful is that you've always kept an open mind to what is the history of these things.
Well, and that's it. Like I think it's you're fruitless to just stick with preconceived notions. I mean, you have to be open to being wrong. You have to be open to not having known a thing and then just and then refocusing. I mean, it's all the scientific process, right? I mean, I do this at work all the time. I'm a mechanic. I can't just like ignore things because every day, every job that I do is the result of things going wrong physically, and then I have to come to a solution with these things. I can't be wrong ever. If I'm wrong, it costs money, and then I have to fix it. And I still have to fix it right.
But you know what? Let me tell you something else about what you just said, because I'm in the same industry in my design. I have made mistakes. If I'm going to keep pretending I'm not making mistakes, I will never improve. And I think what's going to happen at some point is that if people that are just going to be swayed emotionally and not understand that the laws that we have are meant to help you see where you are on the map. If you don't know what Canada says about any given particular topic and you're just being swayed by politicians, then I'm sorry, we're never going to get out of this. We've talked about this several times, that the system and how it's used, when it's just in black and white, it's just in black and white. We talked, remember that one time about public nudity and how that is, there's a law for it. It's very clear what the law is. I think most people really should, and I would encourage everybody this year, at least go through the criminal code, know what the criminal code of Canada says about any topic. Just Control F, search the word, and then Clyde, you'll drop the link for the criminal code. There's revisions, but people could look up anything they want about driving, intoxication, children, anything. Just see what it says, and then you'll know when a politician steps up and starts talking stuff like it's like, wait, I read it. That's not what it says. Why are you saying all this? So
this is a good time. Like, leave it open to the chat. We've been ignoring the chat for a good amount of time here. No, it's fine because I really wanted to have this conversation because I thought we wouldn't have a chance to get back to this at all, or maybe our looking this up was for that time and that place. But it's amazing when these things come up and then you find that, holy cow, we're back here now. We're back here, and now we
had this conversation.
We have more munitions this time, and we're seeing things happen, and we can actually in this situation. I feel like we're actually more knowledgeable than the officials that are talking about this at the moment.
Yeah, I agree.
Like I'm not trying to fault.
And we're not saying it ego. We're not saying it with ego either.
No.
We're saying we're just looking at what's written. We looked at the history. We're looking at the jurisprudence. You can't come to this conclusion if you don't read all this and you don't put all the lines together. Yeah, we do know more. I bet you we know right now. And everyone in this chat now knows more about what the basis of this is.
Well, and that's it. Like, so I honestly think, and I'm not saying this to disparage Melissa Lantsman or Katie Telford. I mean, there's a lot of things I'd like to disparage Katie Telford or Chrystia Freeland over, but this isn't what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I don't think that they understand what's in this legislation. Even the person that was leaving the comment, they're coming to the aid of the Conservatives, it seemed like, but not realizing that it doesn't mention anything about abortion, but it mentions about the law that makes abortion legal in Canada. Like it absolutely does.
Yeah. And you have one of the things when we met, you taught me a lot about how politics convolutes the truth and how they use phraseologies to move away from what they're intended to say. And that's what caused me to really start wanting to look at this up for myself. I didn't want hearsay anymore. And that's something I think I picked up from you when we started getting to know each other.
Yeah. Well, I think there's too much spin on everything. And that's really what this whole channel was based around. And the whole idea of reporting on news every day, it was, look at all the spin that they're throwing out there. They're not even telling us the real reality of the situation. And I mean, I'm overwhelmed. I'm just a mechanic. I only have so much knowledge about this stuff. And I've actually been, and this is a big kudos to you and to the community here and to everybody who's come out. It's amazing to me that so many people are willing to come on to a channel of a dyslexic mechanic and explain things from their area of expertise. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
I do.
And
I do.
And it's fascinating to me, and it's humbling at the same time, because like I'm not the guy. I didn't think I'd be that guy, right? I thought they'd be out talking to Jordan Peterson or some, politician or an anchor man or something like that. But here we are. We're in that situation.
Well,
it just happened organically.
I'll tell you what, man, and maybe most people, I hope most people get to know you or meet you in person, but you're not just this figure online. I don't promote people this way. I call people out. I'm very straightforward. But I think what's happened in the last 3.5 years, there's been a famine for integrity. There's been a famine for people being real, and there's been a famine for people just saying it straight. And I say this from both sides. It's not just conservatives, from liberal sides too. Some people that I know are liberal are just tired, and they want to hear somebody just be real with them. They want to be told, like, this is what's going on with our homes, with our laws, with all this. So I think, yes, in many ways, you could look at yourself that way. And that's, kudos to your humility, dude. But at the end of the day, what I think all of us really look for as Canadians is we just want people. And this is what I remember Canadians for anyway. I remember going to Alberta. I remember going to BC. Everybody just was real with you.
Yeah.
I remember going the first time in Alberta, and I was going to Calgary and then drove to Edmonton, and I was like lost. And they're like, "You're lost, eh?" Like they're mocking me. And they're like, "You're not lost. There's a sign right there." Like everyone was just real with everybody. And it didn't feel so, everybody was polar at this point.
I take that as a huge compliment, but at the same time, I like that you bring it back down to earth. It's not about me. It's about, this is how people are, really. Like, people are just regular people. Like, just be honest with each other. It's really all it has to be. And that's the thing. Like, we've only just learned this stuff and just brought all this stuff out. Like, hats off to you, man. Like the research that you did, you pull up all this information. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that in this chat tonight. But it's just incredible.
I must say, look, and it's just to know, guys. Look, I have no opinion one way or the other. It's just I'm tired of secondhand people telling me stuff that I find out is not true. I'll check, and just to let everyone know, like Clyde will send me something. I'll check his sources. I send Clyde something. He checks anything I send him. I love that. That's how it should be. We shouldn't just take people at face value. We really should investigate and find out what we're being told.
Well, I try to keep up with like what people message me with, and people send me mail. People send me all kinds of things. I try to check up on a lot of the things that people send my way. Not everything I can turn into a story. I'm a busy guy. I've only got so much. I see people in the chat saying Coots 4. Did my best to research that. Found 2 weeks ago I had Jason Levine on. Amazing.
Oh, wow.
Amazing chat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Amazing chat with him. He brought so much information to light that I had no idea about. And this is despite me looking into it. like looking into it is really, really tough to find this information. So, you know.
Well, yeah, and that's what I hope people get from your channel, that this is a Canadian channel. This is for Canadians. This isn't just Clyde. This is how Canadians should be with each other. Okay, fine. From time to time, we'll say some crazy stuff on the air or to each other. But at the end of the day, what we want is to get down to the nitty gritty. Tell us exactly what it is, and we'll deal with it. This is what I remember Canadians for, and they still are this way. It's just, unfortunately, the way news is spinning everything is that we're all against each other. We're not all against each other. I have friends that are liberals and we get along. I have friends that are conservatives. We get along. It's the politicians that are doing this, and it's unfortunate. And from abortion to this, like, seriously, guys, like, isn't it enough with the divisions? Isn't it enough? Like, okay, I get it. There's a lot of people that were wrong. We were wrong. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we have people in our families, and I'm tired of listening to people tell my family members and me what to think.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's not what I try to do on this channel. I don't try to make an argument for what people should think. I always try to make an argument for people to think, if that makes sense.
I'm talking exclusively about politicians.
No, of course.
You would not survive one day in politics.
No, I wouldn't. I get picked apart so fast, and I'd be like, wait a second, I thought we were here for a discussion. Like, no, you're clearly in the wrong town.
Yes.
And that's why I get fed up with politicians as well. I mean, we saw in recent times with Pierre Poilievre, you know, a lot of people got excited about his leadership, and then what does he do? He comes in and apologizes at the request of the media over and over and over again. He had a good showing this week by standing up against what Trudeau was saying, and then bringing up, you know, economic issues. Again, he's solid on that stuff. It's great. But I think here's a big problem with politics too, that I find. As soon as a conservative politician gets into the position that he wants to be in, he stops caring about conservatives. And hear me out here, because this makes complete sense, because they want to get voted in. They just immediately assume you're conservative. You're gonna vote for me, right? So they don't care about you, your ideas, your whatever. They're not trying to get your vote. They already assume they got it. So they're gonna go talk to liberals. They're gonna go talk to swing voters, people on the fence, and that's it. That's all. That's what they care about. So
I'd like to just qualify this before you get to the chat. If you look at how Trudeau had a voter base of people voting for the Liberal leader, how many have turned against their own leader now? That they're siding with conservatives because they're like, I'll take crazy, but not this kind of crazy. And they're now voting to the other side, right? Why wouldn't it be the same thing with conservatives, guys? It would be the same thing. If I was voting conservative and he decided to switch up on me 5 years into this thing, I'd go to the one that was making more sense. So this clearly isn't always just one party or the other. This is who's the one that's making sense for Canada as a nation, not just one party.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I think that's how a lot of voters look at it. But
I agree.
There's also all the fence sitters. You know, there's a lot of people that are fence sitters. People who don't pay attention. People. I mean, look at Pierre Poilievre's moves lately. He's ditched the glasses. He's got a new hairdo.
He's buff. He's buff now.
He's got all the things. You know, he's got the tight shirts and all that stuff and whatever. If that's what he's got to do, but that's actually
he's shopping at Armani now. That's what he's doing. Is
that really a condemnation of politicians, or is that a condemnation of the people who vote for politicians? I think it's both. Look, from a marketing standpoint, of course you want to market to your audience, but this to me shows you that there is a pandering to a shallow audience. Absolutely. And that you know that that there is a shallow audience of people that are impressed with, you know, Vidal Sassoon Trudeau hair. There's a people that love open suits. They don't want ties, and they're doing all these demographic, votes and sampling audiences and blah blah blah. And look, at the end of the day, it's these politicians are playing on what people want. In fact, remember we had talked about how
a lot of the liberal government once was legislating laws in the time of the pandemic based off of sampling votes and data. They weren't doing it because they believed it. They were going after what these sample audiences were saying. They were just giving the people what they thought they wanted at that time, and that's how they were legislating.
Well, that's pandering.
And unfortunately, well, that's it. That's
I
didn't want to say it.
The definition of pandering is giving people what they want, right? And not having a conviction behind what it is that you're doing
At all. And isn't that what you're sick of? Because I'm sick of that. Can't you just stand up for something? Look, if Maxime Bernier, for example, really stood up for that, man, good for you. I agree with it or not is irrelevant. Good for you. That's what you believe.
Well, that's
in.
what was really disappointing for me with this whole thing where I thought he was pandering with the abortion thing. Was he was supposed to be the principled guy, right? That was his whole brand. Was he's the principled guy, and then when he came out with what seemed to me to be a pander, I was like, you've lost all appeal. Now, even Sincat in the chat says, if you could take the best of Max and the best of PP, you could get the perfect politician. But that brings back to me though that I want some conviction. I want some conviction. I want some like things that somebody won't back down from. I think PP falls short on that. That's my personal opinion.
I had a guy tell me a joke about pandering, and if you don't mind me just telling you, just to add to Sincat what he was saying, he's like, there was this politician that went to a basketball game and told all the basketball players that he's going to help them in their sport, but he needs their vote. Then he went to the soccer players and he said, listen, I want to support you in all your stuff. And then they started pulling it like, we're coming to you, we're going to vote for you, but you got to do stuff for us. And the way that he decided to do it was to compromise and create handball. So that you had the best of both worlds, and then nobody was happy because the basketball
nobody's happy.
Nobody's happy. And that's politicians. They're going to go to this party. I'll give you what you want. But what happens if this party is in direct conflict with this party? What they want? It's the nature of the game, and we're dealing with it. And we need conviction to break through that kind of compromise, and we're not finding it. I think, yes, for the most part, I'm on the conservative side of things. Do I think that they are completely what I want them to be? To be honest, no. But given where we are with the liberals at this point, and the fact that Jagmeet Singh has absolutely no scruples as far as I'm concerned, he stands for nothing.
I think he's done politically, though. Like, I think the NDP's losing appeal in their brand because of him, and if they want to bring back any semblance of an NDP brand, they'll have to get rid of him.
But it's crazy. This is how you know when divisive politics gets to this point, Clyde.
Yeah.
That's when you know it's the end of something. They're like on their last legs when you start bringing in things like marriage and this. Like, you are desperate at this point. Marriage, abortion. At this point, it's over, man. Like Canadians are done being constantly angry and fractured and divided. Joe Rogan called it outrage politics. Like, people are done with outrage politics. Yeah, we're just done.
Yeah, people are over it.
It's enough now.
I think so. Mike TV Dub in the chat says, I have zero hope for PP that he'll fix anything. He won't even defund the CBC like he promised if elected, calling it now. Now, here's the thing that I've been kind of toying with the idea of is that, things will start getting where the liberals are losing their branding. People are ditching on them. They've destroyed with Trudeau. They've not just destroyed Trudeau.
Yeah, let's just be clear. Trudeau destroyed the brand. Forget the liberals.
Yeah,
he led this merry misfits of men and women. They destroyed their own brand through him.
Right. And so what'll happen next is you're going to have a Pierre Poilievre government, and that's easily predictable. That's what's coming next. But with an economic collapse that I'm sure is coming, it's in the works. It's happening. There's no stopping it. That'll probably be on Pierre's watch, and he'll get a lot of the blame for it. So what comes next?
Well, can we talk from a marketing point of view and business point of view and advertising? And this is what happens when I run into crisis meetings. Let's say we have, really screwed ourselves. We're a bunch of consultants, we're a bunch of designers. What are we going to do? Our third quarter looks like it's going to crash. We're not going to make any money on this. How are we going to salvage the brand? How are we going to pivot from this to this? Look, to be completely frank, Pierre, I know you're a man of principle and all these things, but that's great. You have a hell of a thing on your hands to build. You have to build less the Conservative Party and more Canada. Your job is not to build the conservative Canada, it's to rebuild Canada that the Trudeau has completely, I don't want to sound defeatist. He has really taken a toll on a lot of Canadians, and Pierre has this daunting task of rebuilding and unifying Canadians again. And how he's going to do this?
How does he do that in a recession? Like, it's coming. It's going to be bad.
The thing about it is, look, unfortunately, we're in a place, in my opinion, that at this point there is no good. See, we're faced now with like bad and very bad. Mm-hmm. We don't have a good. And I think you and I had this conversation one time. We're not looking for, the housing market is not going to bounce back in 2 years.
No. No, what we're looking at is, are we going to put a Band-Aid on it and have a recession that lasts 10 years? Or are we going to have austerity and have a recession that lasts 2 years, but hurts really, really bad?
Yes. Now, I want to ask you, because you know this better than I do, but if Pierre, look, from a purely business side, he has often talked about expanding Canada's oil into the rest of the world. Can this boost our economy? I guess the question would be to you. And you and Marty had these conversations, and I really enjoy those conversations that you guys have. Mm-hmm. Is his expanding the, let's say, the pipelines, the oil, all this, can this help Canada recover in a much more faster way?
Yeah, it can. Yeah, absolutely. It can.
Is this what Trudeau is holding back on? That's crippling us. That if we sold more, it would make up for a lot of his dumb mistakes.
I think it would put us in the right direction towards recovery. Like, I think those are some of the first steps in recovery, is building up a manufacturing base again in Canada. We don't have one. We're actually in a situation where we have a consumption economy. And when you have a consumption economy and people no longer have money, well, there's going to be less people consuming. And when there's less consumers, there's less use for goods and services, right? That's all we've got.
Listen, my hope is for us to have any chance as Canadians, as Canada, and our way of life. I think this incoming government needs to take efficient steps to be the most popular manufacturing sales force in the Western Hemisphere at this point per capita, because I don't see us recovering on anything if we are not completely bringing money into this country. We need to bring a lot of money into this country to make up for what the Liberals have basically squandered. What was it? What are we at now? $1.7 trillion in the last 8 years.
It's ridiculous.
Last 4 years.
It's ridiculous.
Like, wow.
But the thing is, we're not going to do that with the regulatory burdens that are in place. We're not competitive on the marketplace for globally. No. Like, investors look at Canada and go, "Why? Why would I go?" No.
Meta is the perfect example of this.
Well, Meta's one of those things that's just there, and Canada wants to engage with it, and Meta's like, yeah, I'm happy to engage with you, tiny demographic in the planet. You know what I mean? And then that tiny demographic's government says, hey, we're gonna charge you money to deal with our people, and they're just like, off, you know. By anyway,
off. That's all it was. Off. I've been watching on Twitter. Yeah. Like, people are showing me screen grabs. They won't even show your post. Wow.
Yeah, it's
like,
insane.
This is what I mean. Pierre, if he's listened to this convo, and I really hope somebody on their team listens to these convos with you. I'm sure they do. Listen, you got to make sure that all this is gone. You need to bring Canada back to where we all actually get along.
His team only cares about getting elected. And let me show you this. So this is the quarter 2 2023 federal fundraising, and this is across all the parties, right? Except PPC, not yet reported. So yeah, whatever. So the CPC is at almost $8 million in quarter 2 of donations that have been given
Funding, right?
to their party. The Liberals, a close second. No, it's not close at all. It's closer to third than it is to second. Is 3.19 million, and then the NDP at 1.3, and the GPC at 400,000. Okay, it just goes down from there.
I mean, it's funny because the Liberals and the NDP together are basically half the CBC, the CPC at this point.
Yeah, they're half. If you add them up, they're half. Yeah, it's crazy. But here's the interesting thing that I brought up on this is that, do you think that those are all individual donors? Do you think those are all people that are going to PP rallies and hanging out?
No.
Absolutely not. These are corporate donors. These are lobbyists. These are people that want to peddle influence. Now, why are they going to the Conservative Party and not giving to the Liberals? Because they understand that the Liberals are on their way out and the Conservatives are on their way in. And that's it. They've decided. They've decided that that's where it's going. The Liberals are not going to go. This is why I don't think there's going to be a fall election. I don't think the Liberals, they see this and they go, we're not going to give up power now. We're never going to have it again.
Can I give you an opinion on something?
Yeah, go for it.
I hope I'm going to be quoted wrong. I think he's going to step down. That's my opinion. He's going to step down at some point before the end of the year. You're going to all laugh at me. That's fine. I just want to be the guy that wins the lotto. When he does step down and say, I said it. I would 1 in a million, but I said it. I
want him to step down before Marty gets back. So that's the news that I give him when he comes back from his 10-day hike.
He's going to love that. He's going to love that conversation.
I doubt it's going to happen though. No, I see.
Trudeau must go.
I genuinely see Trudeau and his ilk as followers of Schwab and the World Economic Forum, and not just them, but this whole global ESG movement. They're in a position of power to influence change. And they have a majority.
Right. Yeah,
they're not going to give that up. Why would they give that up?
At this point, you're right. Listen, I won't deny it. You're right. Why? Okay, we're going to lose. Let's milk this till the end.
Why not?
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, they're not going to get back into power. Period. It's not happening.
Because that's just as my opinion. I think, like you said, the donors that are feeding the Conservative Party, they have maybe a lot more say and weight than we know, right? And I think what's happened is that for a very long time, Conservatives, particularly in the last 8 years, and under people like O'Toole and all these people, they were very milquetoasty. They weren't fighting back. Well, you have a bit of a bobcat with Pierre Poilievre, and remember how he blew everyone away when he was being elected as the Conservative leader of the party in terms of funding. I think there's a lot of people with hefty money. They're just, and I saw something from Jordan Peterson today. Talk about Conservative people are usually more reserved and they're not as outraged and all this. And I think a lot of the Conservatives that were playing by the rules are finally fed up. And I think you're going to start seeing some Conservative flexing from the donors at this point. And they really just can't afford any more Trudeau. The economy is bad. He's made his, money, in my opinion, and people that follow him made their money. But now it's time to get businesses back. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I work with in Canada that have lost their businesses. And that's small fries. Can you imagine guys where their bottom line is in the trillions of billions of dollars? They can't afford this anymore. It was fun while it lasted. It's time to move on.
Yeah. Well, Jetlander in the chat says, I think Vesper's correct because he can't stomach defeat. Correct about him wanting to step down. I think you're right. I think we can agree on him stepping down, but I think it's going to happen just before an election in 2023.
Maybe, yeah. I'll give that up and say you're probably right. I'm pulling that lotto ticket with the 16 numbers. I hope I get it, and if I do, I could say I got it.
Yeah, I personally think the whole separation of Trudeau and his wife, it was completely over the them not being able to look into, with the ethics commissioner, into what's going on with her side business.
Yeah, and I guess just to kind of shoot back to this for your sake, I mean, how much more divisive politics are we going to be looking at in wedge issues from now till the end of, the term that the Liberals have? Do you think they're going to continue this
yes.
gay marriage and all this all the way till the end?
Yeah.
So what's the advantage if they know they're going to lose? Why continue to wedge people?
If they know they're going to lose, why would they continue to wedge people?
Like that's it at this point. Just
because they're still playing the politics game. Like they're still thinking, hey, maybe they'll forget and like us again.
No,
yeah, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
They can't be that dumb. Your brand is so bad that like I wouldn't put like a rubber sticker behind it saying, any good or bad thing.
There's always the chance that PP could have a flub and then lose popularity with a lot of people because he says something about whatever, right? That
right.
Yeah, they're always going to play that angle. They'll always have that.
So they're really just going to continue this divisive politics all the way to the end. And then after that, I mean, in your opinion, where do the Liberals
Trudeau doesn't have another
after
game.
these 8 years?
Trudeau doesn't have another game than divisive politics.
So, okay, what happens to the Liberal Party after Trudeau, in your opinion?
Well, they're going to have to go.
Is there a Liberal? Is there going to be a Liberal Party for like
that's a
20
question.
years?
That's a good question. I mean, after the first Trudeau, the Liberals were done for a good amount of time. So,
wow.
Yeah, like
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that really hurt them. That really hurt them. I don't know. I don't know if they'll come back. Maybe they'll need to make a new party. There's no knowing. I mean, we're going to go into a recession that's caused by the Liberals, and they can't get away from that. This is going to be a hard recession, like the worst that Canada's ever seen.
Marty posted something the other day. Marty up north, he posted this woman from Barrie that had her mortgage went up like astronomically. It went up to like from $2,800 to like $6,000 a month for her mortgage payment. She had to sell off the house. You know how many people I'm seeing saying we're selling off our houses? I couldn't believe it. And again, if it wasn't Marty, I apologize. But I saw that there's a Barrie woman that had to sell her home that doubled in price. That's the one. I couldn't believe it. Pierre Poilievre was the one that posted, like, look at this. How's Pierre going to fix this? It's not going to be done in 2 years. I'll tell you that. It's not going to be done in 3 years.
Her mortgage payments raised to $6,200 a month.
Who could live on that? Dude, imagine if God forbid, this is like 20% of Canada. It's a disaster. There's probably way more than that where they're so over leveraged. And this is what we've been living through. And they're using divisive politics on things like marriage and abortion to just no one to see this. There was another one today I saw of Trudeau talking about the grocery rebate bill. He even got noted. Did you see that one where he was talking about how we're giving money back for grocery? He got a community notes like smack dab under him saying this is such a lie because most people on minimum wage can't even qualify. They can't even qualify for this. Like even a minimum wage person.
You know what the qualification was? $32,200 or something like that a month or a year.
Dude, that's like 1985 annual income. It's not even today. Today's annual household income is like 96,000.
But here's what's horrible about that statistic: 11 million people in Canada qualified.
Wow,
that's where we're at.
Wow, food stamps, dude. This is what this guy did to this country. Food stamps.
I mean, we don't have food stamps. We have, this.
No, I know what you mean. Subsidies and stuff like that. But wow, man, I have hope. Let me tell you why I have hope. I have hope because I think most Canadians are going to, sure, some of us come later to the party. Some of us come earlier. But I think ultimately everyone's going to be fed up with all the antagonism at some point, and we're not going to stand up for this anymore. It didn't matter what party you're at. We just don't want to fight. You want to believe what you want to believe, that's fine. But we can't be dividing this country up this way. And I really hope that in the next government, I hope, and I'm probably being cynical and being very naive, but I really do hope people start calling out their politicians from whatever party if they don't keep their promises. I really hope so. And we do it early. We don't wait 5 years into it and then start calling them out. Because Trudeau, the more I've been studying, this, Clyde, I've been studying him for 2 years now. I've been noticing that from the very first year, and I posted an article today on Twitter where I said, I don't know if you could pull that up. I posted it. CBC for the first time, years ago, actually posted something that was prophetic of Justin Trudeau. And I don't know if people could see this. Feel free to send them the link. It's in the comments. The full article is there. It's Justin Trudeau's honeymoon period. How long can it last? What an amazing article! And you really should send this to share this with most people. If you look at the picture, it says read when CBC had a shred of credibility before it was bought and paid for. Yeah. So if you go down, right there. No, yeah, right there. You see that link? Click that link. This is CBC 2015. That's the year he got elected.
Justin Trudeau's honeymoon period. How long can it last? It sure as hell is over now. Liberal leader takes power.
Look what it says.
Holy cow.
No, read just the first paragraph and look what it says.
Great news. Oh my God, Trudeau and great news at the same time. A new age of sunshine and rainbows is about to dawn on Canada. With a wave of his hand, Justin Trudeau will banish global warming, cancel the bombing in Iraq, shelter and the Syrian refugees, order new consensus, legalize pot, and lift the burden of taxes from the groaning backs of the middle class. And here we are.
Look, keep going.
Bread lines, man. Bread lines.
Keep going. Read. Just keep reading.
On the second day, infrastructure dollars will wash over the land of the wicked and will melt. What? We're off to see the wizard. Okay, what wizard turned out to be the huckster? And in truth, as U.S. President Barack Obama was predicted, Trudeau's pledge of real change probably means that his legendary hair will change to gray and quickly.
That's what happened. Look at his face.
He's lost
his hair.
He's lost his beauty. That's for
dude.
Sure.
Everyone should read this article. It's the first year of his election, and almost everything he said happened.
Really?
Yeah, everything. I called it prophetic in my Twitter post. Wow. Like, this is prophetic. This isn't CBC of all places. CBC, so it's funny. It just gets funnier and funnier.
Well, the CBC is not the same anymore because he funded them. They don't write like this anymore.
And I posted that before they were bought and paid for. But this guy called him out. This guy called everything about him, and he shows the natural cycle of a leader. And how people fall out from the honeymoon
based on merit. Who ever heard of such a thing? Oh wow, yeah, holy cow. Yeah,
well, look, if you look at the last line, it's and people can read this for themselves, but it's such a good read. So will the Senate and the provinces put the Senate on right there? Go up, right there. In the immortal words of Donald Rumsfeld, stuff happens. A honeymoon can be wrecked all too easily, even by something Trudeau has in abundance. Hair. Remember that time in 1993 when a newly elected Bill Clinton held up an air traffic in Los Angeles so he could have a high-priced haircut on Air Force One? Oh, sure. The story eventually turned out to be bogus. No flights were delayed, but it was too late. Clinton's honeymoon lay in ruins. Nice hair, though.
Holy cow. This guy, Terry.
Malusky. Yeah. And listen, I really wish people could read this. I couldn't believe it. It's like this guy had like a crystal ball. He called everything.
I'm following this writer because he's a real writer for the CBC.
Yeah,
still.
Yeah. It's so. Listen, man. I think Canadians, and I'm so glad so many of you have stepped up way before me. I'm a small fish, but I try to really look up to a lot of you people. People like Andy Lee, people like Marty, people like you. Thank you for all that you have done and at least putting it out there and for fighting for the little guy and the average Canadian.
I am the little guy, man. I am the little guy.
Well, I know, but that's why. But that's why we're listening, and that's why we're relating. And we want politicians to just be straight with us, and unfortunately, we're having to get it from the little guy. Yeah, if you know what I mean.
No, I absolutely.
So I just as a friend of the channel and as a friend of yours, thank you for having me on this, man. And I don't know, maybe you want to talk to the chat or whatever you want. I'm here.
Well, I mean, we've been at it for 2 hours and 32 minutes, so I think we're going to wrap it up. A couple of things from the chat here. Do you serve soybean laden veggie burgers, Angry? I don't know. The chat's talking to each other at this point because we're rambling quite a lot. It happens. It happens. Yes, Clyde. Thanks, Clyde, for sharing. I do what I can. I try to bring as much of what I can do. I mean, I've only got so much time in a day, and I do work a full-time job as well, and raise a family. So this is the thing. Clyde is a truth teller on YouTube. Yes, and there are others. So like this is the thing. And every time I get wind of another good YouTuber, I always try to like connect with them and get them on the channel, because that's the thing. We should strengthen numbers, right? And rise all boats rise with the rising tide is the saying that they say, right?
I completely agree. And you know what? I think you should, just for the sake of conversation, I will give you the links for all those things we had a discussion on for the abortion and all this stuff.
Okay.
You should probably just drop this into the comments. Maybe people want to go read this up for themselves. I'll get all the links for you.
What I'll do is I'll put them all in the description after, probably tomorrow morning, so that they're all in there.
Right.
And then I'll get them in there. I really think I'm going to publish this as a separate video as well, just this chat as another podcast, because this is gold, and I don't want it to just go in the memory hole of live streams. So we'll get it up as a separate video up there.
And listen, Canadians, go read your criminal code. Go read your criminal code. Go read your criminal code. You will thank yourselves for reading your criminal code. It's filled with things that you did not believe were there.
Yes, and all kinds of things that are being contested these days, for sure. Everybody stop giving me so much praise. It really hurts my ego, because I try to check myself all the time. If you give me too much praise, I have to do extra work to check my ego and keep myself down to earth. So I appreciate it. Thank you all so much. And again, I'll also thank Vesper for some of these designs that are coming out soon in the merch that we're putting out. Vesper's been absolutely I mean, I don't even know what I would do without what you've done. It would be
just friends, dude.
I know,
dude.
But it's crazy, because like you're incredible. You're just incredible with what you do, and
thank you.
And the fact that you're so willing to help out with that stuff, and it's amazing. And it's a great contribution to the whole community and everything that's going on here. Amazing work that you do. But anyway, we'll wrap this one up. Thanks everybody for coming out. Any last words? And well, we got some super chats. Waniska with the $10 super sticker. Thank you so much for that. Anything else you want to add before we take off, Vesper?
Honestly, thank you. Thank you for having me on. Thank you, rest of Canada, and all the chat and all the people watching. Honestly, if you want to see some funny stuff from my side, just follow me on Twitter for Vesper Skill. And like I told Clyde, and I'm saying this live now, I'm not really looking for followers. I just want to give everybody the tools and the equipment for them to just use. And I'm telling you to steal my stuff. I don't need you to even mention my name. Just anything I make, use it. You'll find a bunch of GIFs. You'll find a bunch of videos.
Did you know that they've made it available now, that Twitter users can make their videos downloadable right from the app now?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can make your videos downloadable for people, so they don't have to go to an additional website. You can rip your stuff.
So follow me. Yeah, follow me. I'll make you guys just go see the videos I have, the ones that didn't, and you can just download it and use it. Put your names on it. I don't care. You just do whatever you want, but just get it out there, because I think at this point we really are the voice of truth. The average Canadian is the voice of truth at this point, because we care about our country and our lives and our families. We don't care about getting into power.
Mm-hmm. And it's pronounced GIF. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Good night, everyone. And as always,